The galaxy was silent. Not peaceful silence, a forced silence, a silence created by fear. Centuries ago, the stars were alive. Ships crossed the void every hour. Trade fleets, exploration vessels, scientists, dreamers, everyone traveled the galaxy. Then the Galactic Council changed everything. They created a law, the Dark Sky Act. FTL travel was banned across the galaxy. Any ship caught jumping through space was destroyed. No trial, no warning, just silence. The council said it was for stability. They said uncontrolled travel caused wars. They said civilizations must remain safe. But the truth was simple: control. When travel stopped, civilizations became prisoners. Planets turned into cages. Alien species slowly forgot the stars. Generations passed. Children grew up believing space travel was dangerous. Ancient shipyards rusted. Navigation charts were erased. Curiosity died. The galaxy stopped dreaming. And the council watched everything. Massive automated sentry networks surrounded the major systems. Millions of digital eyes. Every engine signature was tracked, every signal analyzed, every illegal jump destroyed. No one dared to challenge them, except one species: humans. Humans were new to the galaxy. Compared to other civilizations, they were children. But humans had something rare: stubborn curiosity. When humans first learned about the Dark Sky Act, they did not feel fear, they felt anger. Because to humans, the stars were not decoration, the stars were a destination. Human explorers studied the ancient records. They discovered something disturbing. Before the Dark Sky Act, thousands of alien civilizations had thriving space networks, trade routes, science missions, cultural exchanges. Then the council shut it all down, and slowly, knowledge disappeared. Humans realized something. The council did not just ban travel, they erased ambition. But humans refused to forget. Deep under Earth, inside hidden research facilities, engineers worked night and day, not building faster engines, not building smarter AI, but building something strange, something the galaxy had forgotten: mechanical systems, simple machines, levers, manual ignition, analog controls. Because modern FTL engines had a secret, a kill switch. Every advanced engine contained council code, hidden deep inside the systems. The moment an illegal jump was detected, the engine shut down or exploded. No one could remove the code. Alien engineers had tried for centuries. The council always found them. But human engineers discovered something interesting. The kill switch only worked on digital systems. It needed software, signals, automation. So humans asked a dangerous question. What if the engine had no software? What if the engine was completely manual? No computer, no network, no AI, just mechanics. At first, the idea sounded ridiculous. Even human scientists laughed. FTL travel required precise calculations, micro-adjustments, extreme energy control. Computers handled that, not people. But humans kept thinking, because humans had history. Before advanced AI, humans had flown aircraft manually, piloted ships through storms, land vehicles across deserts. Human instinct had once guided machines. Maybe it still could. Years passed. Hundreds of prototypes failed. Engines exploded. Ships tore themselves apart. Many engineers quit, but some refused to stop. Finally, one strange design survived testing. It looked terrible, ugly, heavy, covered in pipes and manual valves, nothing like the elegant alien ships. Human engineers gave it a nickname, the Rust Bucket, because it looked like it belonged in a scrapyard, not space. But inside, it was something revolutionary, a completely analog FTL drive. No software, no digital signature, nothing for the Council sensors to detect, just raw power, heat, pressure, and human control. Every system required physical operation. Levers had to be pulled manually. Energy flow had to be adjusted by hand. If the pilot made a mistake, the ship would rip itself apart. Most alien species would never attempt something so dangerous, but humans were different. Danger did not scare them. Danger excited them. The first test flight was scheduled in secret. Location, deep space, far from Council surveillance. The crew gathered inside the rust bucket. 5 humans, 2 engineers, 1 navigator, 1 pilot, 1 mechanic. The cockpit looked ancient. Rows of metal levers, pressure gauges, rotating wheels, steam like heat vents. The pilot looked around, then laughed softly. "This thing feels alive." The engineer nodded, because it is. Computers follow rules, but machines respond to people. The navigator checked the star map. Destination, a forbidden sector, a place no ship had entered for centuries. If the jump worked, the galaxy would change forever. The mechanic placed his hand on the ignition lever, a thick steel handle connected to the core reactor. No button, no screen, just force. The engineer spoke quietly. "Once we start, we cannot stop. If we hesitate, the drive collapses." The pilot smiled. "Good. I hate hesitation." Energy began building inside the engine. Metal pipes vibrated. The entire ship shook, temperature rising, pressure rising. The navigator shouted coordinates. The mechanic pulled the first lever. The engine roared, a deep, violent sound, like a giant waking up. Another lever, more power. The pilot gripped the control wheel, manual stabilization. The hull groaned. Warning lights flashed. Not digital warnings, physical alarms, buzzers, shaking needles. The engineer yelled, "Heat levels critical." The mechanic adjusted coolant valves. Steam exploded through vents. The ship trembled violently. The navigator shouted, "Jump window opening. 5 seconds. 4, 3. The pilot pushed the final lever, and the rust bucket vanished. Not smoothly, not elegantly. It punched through space like a hammer breaking glass. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, the stars changed. The ship emerged in a forbidden sector, light years away. No alarms, no Council weapons, no sentry network, because the sensors detected nothing. No digital signal, no illegal engine code, just emptiness. The pilot stared out the window and whispered, "We did it. The first illegal jump in centuries." But far away, inside the Galactic Council command network, something strange happened. Their sensors recorded an impossible event, a spatial rupture with no engine signature, no ship, no signal. The Council leader stared at the data, confused, then worried, because for the first time in centuries, their perfect control system had a weakness. And somewhere in the darkness, humans had just discovered it. Far beyond the borders of human space, the rust bucket drifted in silence. Stars burned quietly around the ship. No patrols, no sentry drones, no Council signals. For centuries, this region had been forbidden, a dead zone on every star map. But now, a human ship floated there. The crew stared through the cockpit glass. The navigator whispered, "We are really here." The engineer checked the gauges. All mechanical, all analog, no digital signals, no traceable code. The Council sensors were blind. The pilot leaned back in his chair and smiled. They thought they owned the stars. The mechanic wiped grease from his hands. Engines survived the jump. Barely, but they survived. The rust bucket had proven something impossible. FTL travel without the Council, without their machines,
without their permission. Back on Earth, inside a hidden underground command center, human leaders waited. Massive analog receivers listened for signals, not digital, old-style radio, because even human communications had to stay invisible. Then, finally, a transmission arrived. A simple message, 3 words, "Jump successful." The room went silent, then cheers erupted. Engineers hugged each other, scientists laughed, some even cried, because the silence of the galaxy was finally broken. The rust bucket had done more than travel. It had opened a door, and humans were ready to walk through it. Weeks passed. The rust bucket continued testing, jump after jump, each one dangerous, each one violent. Every time the crew had to fight the machine, pulling levers, adjusting pressure, cooling overheating pipes. One mistake meant death. But humans adapted quickly. They learned the personality of the engine, how it roared before a jump, how it vibrated when energy peaked. The ship was not automated, it was alive, and humans learned to listen. Soon Earth began building more ships, not elegant cruisers, not sleek alien vessels, but heavy manual ships, each one full of gears, pipes, steel levers, massive reactors. Alien spies watched the construction. They were confused. These ships looked primitive, ancient, like machines from a forgotten era. But humans knew the truth. Primitive machines cannot be hacked. Primitive machines cannot be shut down remotely. Primitive machines cannot be controlled. They only answer to the hands that operate them. Soon, the first human fleet gathered in deep space. 20 ships, all manual override vessels, all invisible to Council sensors. Each crew trained to survive the violent jumps. Before the mission began, the fleet commander spoke to them. The galaxy believes the stars belong to the Council. Tonight, we prove they are wrong. No cheering, no speeches, just quiet determination. The first ship activated its engine, then the second, then the third. Soon space filled with the deep thunder of analog reactors, metal shaking, energy building. The fleet prepared to jump. Destination? A trade corridor once used by hundreds of alien civilizations, now abandoned because the Council blocked all access. The navigator began countdown. 5, 4, 3. The commander pulled the ignition lever, and 20 human ships punched through space. The jump was brutal. The hull screamed. Pressure gauges shook violently. Inside the rust bucket, the mechanic shouted, "Coolant valve open." The engineer turned a massive wheel. Steam burst through side vents. The pilot fought the control wheel, holding the ship stable. The navigator shouted, "Almost through." Then suddenly, the stars changed again. The fleet emerged together, inside the forbidden trade corridor. Silence filled the cockpit. Then the pilot laughed. The blockade was broken. For the first time in centuries, ships traveled the corridor, and the Council had no idea. Far away, inside the Galactic Council's central network, something strange appeared on long-range sensors. Not engine signals, not digital transmissions, just gravitational disturbances. 20 small ruptures in space. The Council analysts stared at the data. Impossible. FTL jumps required digital signatures. These had none. One Council officer whispered, "Maybe the sensors malfunctioned." But another analyst shook his head. "No, something is out there, and it should not exist." Meanwhile, the human fleet activated broadcast beacons, old-style radio, extremely powerful. The signal traveled through space, across silent systems, across forgotten colonies, across abandoned star stations. The message repeated again and again. "The stars are open. The stars are open. The stars are open." Alien worlds heard the signal. Planets that had not seen a ship in centuries. Civilizations that had forgotten space travel. They listened in disbelief, because the signal came from inside the forbidden corridor. One alien historian whispered, "That route was sealed by the Council. No ship can enter." But the signal kept repeating, "The stars are open." Soon curiosity spread across the galaxy. Secret networks began talking, hidden communication channels, black market traders, rebel scientists. Everyone asked the same question: who broke the blockade? The answer shocked them: humans. A young species, barely known across the galaxy, and yet they had done what ancient empires never could. They ignored the Council. Even more shocking, the humans were offering something: blueprints, manual engine designs, mechanical FTL drives. No software, no kill switch, no Council control. Alien engineers stared at the blueprints. At first they laughed. "This design is insane. It requires constant manual control. It is dangerous, primitive." But slowly their laughter stopped, because the design worked. Across hidden alien networks, a strange new phrase began spreading: human grit. The willingness to fight the impossible, the courage to risk everything just to reach the stars. Soon, alien traders arrived secretly in human space. They brought ancient artifacts, rare materials, old star charts, in exchange for one thing: human engine blueprints. Human engineers did not hesitate. They shared them freely, because humans believed something important: the stars belong to everyone, not just the Council. And as more species began building manual ships, the silence of the galaxy slowly began to crack. More illegal jumps, more forbidden signals, more ships appearing in places they should not exist. The Council watched the reports grow: one rupture, then 10, then hundreds, and still no digital signatures, no traceable engines, no way to stop them. Inside the Council chamber, panic began to rise. Their control had lasted centuries, but now a young, stubborn species had found a way around it. One Council leader finally spoke: "Find the humans, find their technology, and destroy it. Because if we cannot control the stars, then no one will." But the Council had already made a fatal mistake. They underestimated humans, and now the rebellion of the stars had already begun.
The signal spread slowly. Then, suddenly, it spread everywhere. Hidden radios on forgotten moons heard it. Old listening stations floating near dead stars heard it. Abandoned trade ports heard it. The message was always the same: the stars are open. At first, many alien civilizations thought it was a trick. The Council had ruled the galaxy for centuries. No one believed their power could be broken. But strange reports began appearing. Ships were traveling again. Small ships, ugly ships, primitive ships. But they were moving between stars, without permission, without digital signatures, without Council approval. Everywhere the same rumor appeared: humans found a way. In secret laboratories across alien worlds, engineers studied the human blueprints. They expected advanced technology, something complex, something powerful. Instead, they found machines that looked ancient: pipes, levers, pressure valves, mechanical ignition systems. No automation, no artificial intelligence, just raw mechanics. Many alien scientists laughed. "This design is dangerous. It requires constant manual control. It should not work." But then they saw the numbers. The calculations were correct. The energy flow balanced perfectly. The jump drive worked. It was crude, but brilliant.
Because the Council systems could only detect digital engines, the human drive had none, which meant the sensors were blind. Soon, the first alien prototype ships appeared. A small mining world tested one. Their ship vanished, then reappeared near a nearby system. Illegal, unregistered, undetected. The galaxy had just changed again. Meanwhile, the Rust Bucket returned to Earth orbit. The ship looked worse than before. Burn marks covered the hull. Several plates were warped from heat. Steam vents were damaged. But the crew was alive, and they carried something priceless: proof. Human scientists gathered around the ship. They inspected every component. The engineer spoke proudly. The engine held together through 8 jumps. The pilot laughed. Barely, but barely is enough. News of the success spread quickly through human space. Factories began building more manual ships, hundreds of them, each one slightly stronger, slightly safer, but still mechanical, still invisible. Human space traffic increased rapidly. New trade routes appeared. Exploration missions launched. Lost colonies were rediscovered. The stars were waking up again. But not everyone celebrated. Inside the Galactic Council, fear had replaced confidence. Their command chamber was filled with holographic reports, illegal jumps, untraceable ships, alien civilizations rebuilding star fleets, all using the same primitive design: human technology. One council commander slammed his fist on the table. "This should be impossible. Our sensors track everything." Another officer responded quietly. "They track digital systems." Humans removed the digital systems. Silence filled the chamber, because the realization was terrifying. The most advanced surveillance network in the galaxy was useless against simple machines. Another council leader spoke. "How many illegal ships exist now?" The analyst looked at the data. His voice shook slightly. "Thousands, and increasing every day." The chamber erupted in arguments. Destroy human space, block their systems, seize their technology. But another voice interrupted. "Even if we destroy them, the knowledge already spread. They cannot stop it anymore, because the truth had already escaped. The galaxy had learned something powerful. The Council was not unstoppable." Meanwhile, on a distant alien world, a group of young engineers gathered around their first human-style engine. They were nervous. Their species had not attempted FTL travel for generations. Their ancestors had obeyed the Dark Sky Act. Their culture had grown cautious, fearful. But now they stood inside a small mechanical ship. The cockpit looked strange. No smooth alien interfaces, no glowing control panels, just steel levers and spinning gauges. One engineer whispered, "Humans really fly like this." Another replied, "Apparently they do, and they survive." The pilot took a deep breath. He grabbed the ignition lever. Energy began building inside the engine. The entire ship vibrated violently. The engineer shouted, "Pressure rising." The pilot shouted back, "That means it is working." Moments later, the alien ship jumped, punching through space, just like the Rust Bucket. When they emerged in another system, the crew stared at the stars in shock. One of them whispered, "The Council lied to us. They said FTL travel was too dangerous." But the real danger was losing control. Across the galaxy, similar moments were happening. Species that had forgotten exploration were returning to the stars. Trade began again. Information flowed again. Cultures met again. All because of one stubborn idea: human grit. The willingness to try something dangerous just because it might work. Back on Earth, the Rust Bucket crew received a new mission. This time, it was different, much more dangerous. Human intelligence had discovered something: the location of a major council control hub, a massive station responsible for coordinating thousands of sentry networks. Destroying it would blind huge sections of the galaxy. but reaching it required entering deep council territory, a place heavily protected. The fleet commander gathered the crew. He explained the mission clearly. This station controls the sensor grid for hundreds of systems. If we disrupt it, thousands of illegal ships will move freely. The pilot smiled. Sounds fun. The engineer looked serious. That station will be guarded. The commander nodded. Yes, but their defenses expect digital ships. Our ships do not exist in their system. That is our advantage. Before the meeting ended, the commander looked at the crew and asked something important. If this mission fails, the council will know exactly what we're doing. They may come for Earth. No one spoke. The pilot simply stood up and walked toward the hangar. Because humans had already made their choice, they would not return to silence. Before the fleet launched, a human broadcaster transmitted one more message across the underground networks, a message meant for every species listening. And now, let me ask you something. If your civilization had the chance to break the council control, would you risk everything to reclaim the stars, or would you stay safe on your planet? Tell us your answer in the comments below, because the next chapter of the galaxy will be written by those brave enough to fly. The rust bucket engines roared again, manual levers pulled, pressure rising, heat building. Another jump began. But this time, humans were not just exploring, they were going to war.
The rust bucket floated in darkness. No stars nearby, no planets, just empty space. But hidden far ahead, something enormous waited. The Council Control Hub, a massive station built centuries ago. It was not a normal space station. It was the brain of the Council surveillance network. Millions of sensors across the galaxy reported to this place. Every digital engine, every automated ship, every FTL signature, all of it passed through the hub, which meant one thing. If the hub stopped working, the Council would go blind. The human fleet gathered in silence, 30 manual ships now, every one built with the same strange technology, pipes, levers, heavy reactors, and brave crews. Inside the rust bucket cockpit, the pilot stared at the distant darkness. The navigator adjusted the star map. The engineer checked pressure levels. The mechanic tightened another valve. No computers spoke. No automated systems helped. Just human hands and instincts. The fleet commander spoke through the analog radio. Remember, Council sensors cannot detect us, but their patrol ships still have eyes. We move fast, we strike hard, then we disappear. No hesitation, no mistakes. A quiet voice answered. Understood. The engines began to wake. Low mechanical thunder filled the ships. Metal vibrated. Heat climbed through the pipes. Steam burst from cooling vents. The rust bucket was ready. The navigator whispered coordinates. The pilot gripped the control wheel. The mechanic stood beside the ignition lever. 3, 2, 1. The lever slammed forward. Space shattered. The fleet punched through the void. Moments later, they appeared near the Council hub, and the crew finally saw it. The station was enormous, a glowing structure the size of a small moon. Thousands of antenna towers, sensor dishes, defense platforms, drone factories, patrol fleets floated around it. But something strange happened. No alarms, no warning signals, because the Council sensors saw nothing. The human ships did not exist in their system. The pilot laughed quietly, still blind. Good. The commander gave the order, Attack Pattern Alpha. Human ships moved quickly, each one heading toward a different target. Their weapons were simple, old kinetic cannons, rail launchers, mechanical missile tubes. Nothing digital, nothing hackable. The rust bucket aimed at a large sensor tower. The pilot shouted, Fire! A massive metal slug launched from the rail cannon. No laser, no energy beam, just raw speed. The projectiles smashed into the tower. The entire structure exploded. Debris scattered into space. Inside the council hub, technicians stared at their screens. One officer spoke nervously. "Sensor Tower 34 destroyed." Another officer responded. "Destroyed by what?" The first officer hesitated. "Unknown." There was no engine signal, no weapon signature. The commander stood up slowly. "That is impossible." Then another explosion shook the station. Another sensor array destroyed. Then another. The hub was under attack, but no enemy appeared on their sensors. Outside, human ships moved like ghosts, every strike precise, every movement silent. Within minutes, half the sensor network around the hub was gone. Inside the rust bucket, the engineer shouted, "Reactor heat rising!" The mechanic adjusted cooling valves. Steam burst through the pipes. The pilot kept the ship steady. The navigator scanned the battlefield. More targets ahead. The commander spoke again. "Focus on the central transmitter. Destroy that, and the hub loses control of the outer networks." All human ships turned toward the center of the station, a massive communication tower, hundreds of meters tall, protected by defense turrets. Finally, the Council defenses reacted because their patrol ships saw the explosions. Alien warships rushed toward the human fleet, large, sleek cruisers, fully automated, fully digital. Their sensors searched desperately, but the humans were invisible. One alien captain shouted, "Where are they? We see the damage, but no ships." Another officer whispered, "Sir, something is moving near the central tower, but I cannot lock onto it." The rust bucket was already there. The pilot shouted, "Range optimal." The engineer braced himself. The mechanic locked the final valve. The navigator counted. 3, 2, 1, fire! The rail cannon thundered again. The massive projectile smashed into the transmitter. The explosion was enormous. Shock waves rolled across the station. Antennas snapped. Communication dishes shattered. Inside the council hub, every screen went dark. Connection lost. Sensor networks offline. Control signals failed across thousands of systems. The council grid collapsed. Across the galaxy, millions of automated sentry drones suddenly received no orders. Blockade systems failed. Defense networks lost coordination. The silence of the stars was broken forever. Back near the hub, Council warships finally spotted the human fleet visually. The alien commander shouted, "There they are! Attack!" Energy weapons fired across space, bright beams of plasma and laser light. The pilot of the rust bucket reacted instantly. "Full power jump drive!" The engineer shouted, "That engine cannot handle another jump." The pilot grinned. "It only needs to handle one." The mechanic pulled the ignition lever again. The engine roared violently. Pipes glowed red. Pressure needles slammed into the danger zone. The hull screamed under the stress. The navigator yelled, "Jump window open!" The pilot spun the control wheel, holding the ship together, and then the rust bucket vanished. One by one, human ships punched through space, escaping the battlefield. Council warships fired wildly, but their shots hit nothing. Moments later, the human fleet appeared light years away. The rust bucket drifted quietly. The engine finally cooled. The mechanic leaned against the wall, laughing with relief. The pilot looked out the window. "We just broke their entire system." Back inside the council chamber, chaos filled the room. Reports flooded in. Sensor networks offline. Illegal ships detected everywhere. Trade routes reactivating. Alien civilizations launching fleets. The council leader whispered something no one had heard in centuries. "We have lost control." Across the galaxy, new ships were already launching. Alien fleets, human fleets, independent explorers. The stars were alive again, and this time, no law could silence them. But the council was not finished yet, because deep in their territory, The largest war fleet in the galaxy was already preparing for battle, and their next target was Earth.
Earth was quiet, but it was not peaceful. Everyone knew the Council would respond. Breaking the surveillance grid was not just rebellion, it was a declaration of war. Deep inside Human Command headquarters, admirals watched the incoming reports. Council fleets were moving, not small patrol groups, not security ships, a full war armada, thousands of vessels, the largest fleet the galaxy had seen in centuries. Their destination was clear: Earth. The Council wanted to make an example, destroy humanity, erase the technology, restore fear across the galaxy. But humans were not alone anymore. Ever since the sensor grid collapsed, alien civilizations had been watching. They saw the human fleet strike the hub. They saw the Council lose control. And something changed inside them. For centuries they had obeyed. For centuries they had been silent. Now they saw a species that refused to obey, a species that fought back. The underground networks exploded with messages. Secret channels opened. Hidden fleets began moving, not toward Earth, toward freedom. The first alien ships arrived quietly near human space. Old cargo vessels, mining ships converted to warships, ancient cruisers that had been hidden for generations. They were not perfect, but they carried something powerful: hope. On Earth, human radar operators detected the approaching ships. At first, they prepared for attack. Then a message arrived: "We come to stand with humanity." More ships followed, then more and more. Different species, different designs, different histories, but all carrying the same purpose: to end the silence of the stars. Within days, a new fleet formed around Earth. Not just human ships, hundreds of alien vessels, all equipped with manual engines, all invisible to Council sensors. The rust bucket floated at the center of the formation. The old ship had become a symbol, proof that the Council could be challenged. Inside the cockpit, the pilot looked at the growing fleet. He shook his head slowly. All this from one ugly ship? The engineer laughed softly. Ugly ships change history sometimes. Then the alarm sounded. Long-range scanners detected something enormous. The Council fleet had arrived. Thousands of warships, perfect formations, advanced weapons, energy shields glowing like small stars. It looked unstoppable. The alien captains around Earth watched in silence. Many of them had never fought the Council before. Their species had been too afraid. But today was different, because today they were not fighting alone. The human fleet commander opened the communication channel. His voice echoed across hundreds of ships. For centuries, the Council told us the stars belonged to them. They said exploration was dangerous. They said freedom was chaos. But we know the truth. The stars were never theirs. They belonged to everyone. The commander paused for a moment, then spoke again. Today, we prove that no law, no empire, no council can cage a civilization that refuses to stop dreaming. Across the fleet, pilots gripped their controls, engineers checked their reactors, mechanics stood ready beside the ignition levers. The Council fleet began to advance, energy weapons charging, targeting systems searching, but their sensors still struggled. Manual ships had almost no digital presence, which meant targeting was difficult. The human commander gave the order: all ships, manual jump formation. The alien captains hesitated, because what humans were about to do was extremely dangerous. Manual combat jumps, short-range FTL bursts inside battle, a maneuver most species considered impossible.
But humans had practiced it, and now they were ready. The rust bucket engine roared. The pilot shouted, "Jump, ready!" The mechanic slammed the lever. The ship vanished, then reappeared directly inside the Council formation. The alien crews watching from nearby ships gasped. The humans had jumped straight into the enemy fleet. The rust bucket rail cannon fired instantly. A massive projectile tore through the hull of a Council cruiser. The ship exploded. Shockwaves rolled across the battlefield. Then more human ships jumped, appearing between enemy formations, striking from impossible angles. Council targeting systems could not keep up. They expected predictable digital engines. Instead, they faced chaotic mechanical jumps. Alien allies quickly understood the tactic. Soon dozens of ships began copying the maneuver. Jump, strike, disappear, jump again. The battlefield turned into complete chaos. Council formations broke apart. Ships collided. Energy beams fired blindly. Meanwhile, more rebel fleets arrived. Civilizations that had been silent for centuries, all answering the same call. The stars are open. The Council commanders realized the truth too late. Their perfect control system was gone, their surveillance network destroyed, their enemies everywhere, and their sensors blind. One Council admiral whispered quietly, "We built an empire on control, but we forgot something. You cannot control curiosity." Minutes later, the remaining Council fleet began retreating, ships jumping away, escaping the battle. For the first time in centuries, the Council had lost. The battlefield slowly grew quiet. Debris drifted across space. Damaged ships floated near Earth, but the rebel fleet still stood strong. The rust bucket drifted calmly at the center. The pilot leaned back in his chair and smiled. The silence is over. Across the galaxy, news spread rapidly. The Dark Sky Act was finished. No one obeyed it anymore. Trade routes reopened. Exploration missions launched. New alliances formed. The stars were alive again. Months later, the Galactic Council officially collapsed. Their remaining leaders vanished into hiding, their laws forgotten, and the galaxy entered a new era, a free era, one where every civilization could travel, discover, and dream again. And at the center of that new history was a strange old ship, covered in pipes, levers, and burn marks. The ship that proved something powerful. Sometimes the most advanced technology in the universe is not a computer. Sometimes it is courage, human courage, and the courage to reach for the stars, no matter who tries to stop you. The rust bucket engines warmed again because humanity had no intention of stopping. The galaxy was huge, and the journey had only just begun.